Going for a hike is a great way to connect with nature. The stakes are low, it's typically free, and you're given the chance to leave your woes behind, even if it's just for a short time. But there are some hiking trails out in the world that require a bit more finesse and concentration. From narrow paths carved into steep cliffs to treacherous mountain passes, there are plenty of hiking trails that require courage, skill, and a whole lot of determination. So for today's video, we're going to explore 15 of the most dangerous hiking trails in the world. Number 15. Huayna Picchu. Every social media account worth its salt is going to show off a photo at Machu Picchu. It just comes with the territory. But what that classic photo doesn't show is the perilous journey it takes to get there. Hikers need to climb 1,000 feet of stairs in less than a mile. The hike's so intense, so perilous that it's earned the name the Hike of Death. The trail extends from Peru's famous Machu Picchu ruins at the end of the Inca Trail. The Inca Trail can be challenging in itself, but this specific demonic extension of Huayna Picchu Mountain is one of the riskiest sections. If you fall, there's nothing at the bottom to catch you. Instead, it's the cold embrace of Peruvian rock. But it's the payoff that makes the risk worth it, because it provides some of the best views of the ancient ruins. Of course, the mountain can be summited safely, and you don't have to be the best of the best to make the climb. But for many tourists who trek up these ancient Incan steps each year, they aren't properly prepared. For starters, the biggest problem here is that the trail isn't very well maintained. It's old. Parts of the granite steps are rotting or crumbling, and the only thing to hold on to is a set of old steel cables. Being high in the Andes, the mountain's often covered in clouds and mist, so it's recommended only to attempt the climb under sunny and clear conditions. If you can't see what your next step is, then it could be your last. Many people also underestimate the steepness of the trail, especially coming down. Remember, it's 1,000 feet of stairs in less than a mile. The last thing anyone wants is to reach the bottom before they plan to. Number 14. The Maze. The west coast of the United States is home to some of the most stunning scenery in the country, but some of that scenery is also some of the most dangerous. If something doesn't sting or bite you, then the sun is gonna kill you. But in the case of hiking the maze, it's the geography itself that seemingly wants to do you in. Located in Utah's Canyonlands National Park, the maze truly lives up to its name. It's made of a series of gullies, rock formations, and ridges that form a natural labyrinth of typically smooth red rock. The formations are both strange and beautiful, making hikers feel like they're traversing Martian terrain. But the national park rangers warn against those feeling a little too free-spirited, and they highly stress the importance of winding through the maze with a detailed itinerary, reliable means of communication, and multiple backup plans. This is a maze after all. The biggest dangers that hikers might face in the maze include sudden weather changes, often leading to flash floods, rock falls, and dead ends. That all could mean an agonizing end to what was supposed to be a fun trip. Thankfully, though, there have been no accidental deaths in the area, but this is in part because very few hikers actually make it out to that remote and dangerous part of Canyonlands National Park. If you're looking for isolation, this trail is an effective way to get it. Number 13. Drakensberg Traverse. With a name that makes it sound like the path to the final boss in a video game, Drakensberg Traverse is a 40-mile trail across the Natal National Park. This trail requires a longer stay than some of the other hiking trails on this list. And while there are no rules or regulations saying you have to make the entire trek, this is one of those trails that's worth the entire price of admission for those brave enough. The way opens up with two old rusted chain ladders which take hikers up the ridge and start them on a mismatch of herding trails and animal tracks, which make up most of the traverse. That's just a taste of what's to come. But going the distance is worth it because there are amazing views along every inch of the trail. One of the most famous lookouts is known as the Amphitheater, a rock face with 3 times as much surface as El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. While the views are well worth it, they exist because the Drakensberg Traverse is one of the most exposed sections of alpine territory on Earth. That means plenty of tough weather. So keep a close eye on the weather and be ready to shelter in place if it changes quickly, because that's when things can get really scary. Number 12. The Cascade Saddle. The Cascade Saddle in New Zealand's popularity grew exponentially after a small trilogy of films called The Lord of the Rings was released. Featuring Mount Aspiring National Park, the most recognizable part of the Cascade Saddle is the setting for Isengard. While hikers may not come across orcs or ringwraiths, there are plenty of challenges to be faced along the way. An 11-mile trail through stunning alpine meadows and beech forests, this trail is especially dangerous in foul weather, and many of the reported casualties are the result of missteps going down the slippery rock faces. It's a beautiful journey though, but officials may be altering the trail soon to reduce the number of slippery sections you have to cross. But until then, everyone enters the saddle at their own risk. For now, the National Park Service and Conservation Departments emphasize that the route is only for people with navigation and high-level backcountry skills and experience. And all who do come need to be fully prepared to turn back at the drop of a hat, because when it comes to fighting Mother Nature, she typically wins. The entire trail takes more than 2 days to complete, and hikers have the option to either camp out or bunk up in the mountain huts along the way, each about as cozy as a hobbit hole. Hikers need to be outfitted with shoes sturdier than a hobbit's feet, because the route is full of scrambles, rocky outcrops, and ankle-breaking tufts of grass. But the rewards are pretty worth it. Those lucky enough to make it in one piece are treated to some of the most gorgeous views of snow-capped peaks in the world. Just make sure to bring a fellowship to enjoy it with. Number 11. Kokoda Track. Located in the jungles of Papua New Guinea, the Kokoda Track is one of the most beautifully treacherous hikes in the world. The trek is 60 miles and can take up to 2 weeks to complete. Why so long? Well, the region's subject to some pretty human-unfriendly weather, which can cause afternoon deluges, torrents, ankle-deep mud, tentacle-like tree roots to grow, and beyond slippery conditions. And to top it all off, the Kokoda Track is totally remote, meaning no nearby help, no cell service if things get hairy, which they most definitely will. In 2009, the trail claimed the life of 13 Australians, causing authorities to make the path safer in recent years. Now, permits must be bought in advance and all visitors must make the trek with a licensed operator, which also allows the local communities to benefit from the tourism. But a 2-week-long trail also means plenty of camping, and this is the jungle after all, and conditions here can be unbearable even on a good day. Prepare for sweaty, muggy, clothes sticking to your skin days and bitter nights. It's one of the most remote corners of the world. Organizers recommend training for a full year before attempting the Kokoda Track. And just for a little historical perspective, a large part of the Kokoda Track is where the Empire of Japan fought and lost to the Allied Australian and Papuan forces during World War II. Number 10. Kalalau Trail. Even those who have never heard of the Nepali coast will likely recognize it. The stunning photogenic grandeur of steep verdant cliffs and deep narrow valleys spilling into the sea is known far and wide on so many screensavers, posters, and travel site bucket lists. It makes Nepali one of the most recognizable coastlines anywhere. Crowd appeal notwithstanding, the 22-mile round-trip Kalalau Trail is one of hiking's ultimate states of nirvana, giving you a tropical island experience nearly unmatched. The 11-mile trail is maintained but steep as it crosses above towering sea cliffs and through lush tropical valleys festooned with exotic birds and waterfall rivulets. The first 2 miles of the trail are a popular day hike and provide sublime snippet of what's to come. But to proceed beyond Hanakapiai Valley, hikers must have an overnight camping permit. When to go? Well, any time of the year is open season for the hike, as temperatures seldom drop below 60 degrees Fahrenheit, although October to May can bring unpredictable rain showers. The trail to the spectacular 300-foot Hanakapiai Falls and beyond is recommended for experienced hikers only. Confident backpackers mounting an early start can continue on the rigorous full-day 11-mile hike to the shore, where the crashing Pacific and 2 idyllic sand beaches await. Experiencing Hanakapiai and the completely isolated Kalalau makes this outback trek worth every arduous step. This is an ultimate bucket list endeavor. Number 9. Angel's Landing. Alright, heading back to beautiful Utah, we have Angel's Landing in Zion National Park. But don't let the name fool you, because this hike is anything but angelic. One step in the wrong direction and you may become one yourself. With steep drop-offs and too many switchbacks to count, this is indeed a tough trail to tackle, but in the end you'll find unbeatable views of the 270 million-year-old rock layers of Zion Canyon, older than time itself. And if those steep cliffs don't get you, then maybe the heat will. This place is hot, so make sure to bring plenty of water, otherwise it's going to be a rough 5 hours in the last place you'd want to be without any water. The trail at Angel's Landing starts at the Grotto Trailhead and winds its way through such interestingly named places as Refrigerator Canyon and Walter's Wiggles. The trail ends at Angel's Landing summit, and thankfully, a few hardy trees cling to the peak, providing much-needed shade at the ends of all things. The trail itself is a lot sturdier than some of the other ones on this list, but the continuous switchbacks and steep drops make it a mentally challenging undertaking for even the most physically fit hikers. So while Angel's Landing may not be the toughest trail around, it's best to take it nice and slow. Number 8. Via Ferrata. The Via Ferrata, or Iron Way, has been a destination for adventure seekers for centuries. It's located throughout the Alps. The series of protected mountain pathways is the namesake of the Via Ferrata set. It's also one of the scariest hikes around. In fact, calling it a full hike really doesn't do it justice. Unless you're a seasoned climber, then it's best to stay far, far away from this alpine route. It is definitely a bucket list entry for those in the know, though. Now, in just about every climber's kit, a Via Ferrata set is a system of lanyards and carabiners used to attach yourself to the cables for which this route is named. These pathways were first developed during the 15th century, but were used most extensively during World War I as routes for specialized troop movements. Now, these routes are outfitted with much more modern safety features, including steel cables that climbers attach to using a Via Ferrata set, as well as guide rails, platforms, and a bit more. Today, there are similar routes all over the world, but it's worth seeing the first to take the name and soaking in some of the history of the Italian and Austrian Alps as well. It's the type of place that looked like the setting for an Indiana Jones adventure, making you wonder just how exactly companies got their goods across the way during wartime. Number 7. The Mist Trail. The Half Dome is one of Yosemite National Park's most popular and recognizable features. It's definitely a bucket list hike for nature enthusiasts of any level, but some stretches are certainly a lot more dangerous than others. Enter the Mist Trail. The Mist Trail is one of the more popular routes, in part because of the stunning views you get along the way. In particular, visitors want to get a good look at the majestic Vernal Falls and Nevada Falls, which are especially loud and turbulent in the spring. The entire hike's only about 3 miles, but it's those last 400 feet that put hikers to the test. The area is susceptible to bouts of heavy rainfall, and while steel cables are in place to help you up the final ascent, rainfall can make this section deadly rather quickly. It's another classic example of Mother Nature having the upper hand against us mere mortals, no matter our skill level. The majority of the accidents that happen on the Mist Trail are when the rocks are wet, and despite the popularity, only 300 visitors are allowed per day at Half Dome and only 50 on the summit. And even when the rock is dry, plenty of hikers suffer from fatigue, dehydration, and altitude sickness when they reach the top of the 8,800-foot-high crown. Plenty of photos and videos of people climbing the stairs of the Mist Trail have circulated the internet for years, and they all have one thing in common. Every climber looks like an ant in comparison to this massive wall. Number 6. Kakum Canopy Walk. The spectacular Kakum National Park is located off the coast of southern Ghana in West Africa. This nature preserve sees thousands of visitors every year, and while the trees and wildlife are truly something to behold, it's the canopy walk that really gets travelers going. Kakum Canopy Walk allows hikers to experience a portion of the jungle usually reserved for climbers and flyers, thanks to a trail of precariously hung suspension bridges, giving them a bird's-eye view of the scenery. Moving through the thick tropical jungle of Kakum National Park, the Canopy Walk was actually designed by a pair of Canadian engineers and 5 Ghanaians. Looking to increase tourism, specifically ecotourism, in the largely ignored national park, the designers wanted to create a unique feature that would make the park a destination. Thus, an elevated trail through the canopy was devised. Opened on Earth Day in 1995, the Canopy Walk consists of 7 separate bridges that hang from the trees over 130 feet above the ground. Across over 1,000 feet of walkway, the bridges look as though they're constructed of traditional rope bridges made from the materials of the forest. However, the sturdy spans are made from wire rope, aluminum, and wooden planks, and even have safety netting to keep people from plummeting off the trail. So while it does look incredibly scary, it's still relatively safer than some of the other entries on this list. As long as you travelers don't shake the bridges, then all should be well. Number 5. Devil's Path. Slayer, they sing about going south of heaven, AC/DC rock on about the highway to hell, and hikers in New York can talk about the Devil's Path. Dubbed the toughest trail in the East, the Devil's Path takes about 3 days to complete as hikers make their down through limbo, descending into increasingly difficult terrain. The trail's open year-round, but coming here at the wrong time could spell disaster. Rain, sleet, and snow turn the granite, mud, and moss into some of the most treacherous terrains in the area, offering anything but grace and solace. New York's Devil's Peak offers 6 peaks across the 25-mile span, but what goes up must come down, with a total of about 14,000 feet of elevation changes. It doesn't take the greatest hiker in the world to tackle this beast, but it's certainly not for the faint of heart. Despite being so terrifying, the Devil's Path offers some of the best views in New York's Catskills and Adirondack Mountains. That is, if you can survive all the rock scrambles. Of course, it's the final stretch of the path that proves to be the toughest, because it sees the lowest amount of foot traffic. It's poorly maintained, meaning there are more than enough tree roots and rocks ready to snag your ankle and send you tumbling down into the depths of the Devil's Path. Number 4. Mount Washington. At 6,288 feet above sea level, the highest mountain in New Hampshire is home to some of the worst weather in the world. It's also home to one of the most dangerous hiking trails on Earth. Several storm tracks converge over the mountain, and the result is weather that can change from bad to worse at the drop of a dime. Clear skies provide a spectacular view in every direction, but are very rare. Hurricane-force winds happen on the summit on average 110 days of the year, and most structures near the summit must be chained to the rock to prevent damage. Over 300 inches of snow on average cover the mountain every winter, and sleet happens in summer too. To call Mount Washington a challenge is an understatement. Over 130 hikers have died on this due to avalanches and underestimating the weather. An observatory near the summit is staffed by full-time personnel and volunteers in 8-day shifts in the tempestuous weather. Telling visitors who show up in t-shirts and shorts to turn back now is an all-too-common occurrence here. Despite knowing how abysmal the weather is here, prepared hikers have a choice of 12 main routes up the mountain, and the others can drive up the Mount Washington Auto Road or take a train using the Mount Washington Cog Railway. While the COG has mostly switched over to biodiesel locomotives, they still run one daily steam locomotive excursion. The indigenous people of the region referred to Mount Washington as Agiokochuk, or the home of the Great Spirit. The weather here is so extreme that the mountain itself really does feel alive. And seeing as how winds near the summit can reach around 230 miles an hour, the scenery here can literally blow you away. Number 3. Camp Muir. The 9-mile round-trip hike to Camp Muir on Mount Rainier starts out easy enough. Hikers begin on the Skyline Trail, where they can enjoy an array of colorful wildflowers for just over 2 miles. It's innocent, quaint, and gorgeous. Then, after some climbing, they'll hit the Muir Snowfield. While this section is not quite a glacier, it retains snow year-round. From here, you'll have to navigate another 2 miles and over 2,900 vertical feet on an unmarked route over the vast white expanse. If you stay on the snowfield, you should be safe, but veer too far left or right and you'll encounter crevasses and cliffs of the surrounding glaciers. Camp Muir is made for only the fiercest of hikers, and while it does sound dangerous so far, that first stretch isn't even the fun part. As if she doesn't want humans traversing these parts, Mother Nature throws unpredictable storms rolling in from the Pacific Ocean to cover the snowfield in thick fog. These whiteout conditions disorient the most experienced hikers, even in the middle of summer. Hikers will need to come prepared with crampons, an ice axe, proper clothing, and a first aid kit. More than 90 hikers have died on their way up this route, and 294 fatalities have happened on the mountain overall. While it can be done without one, the safest way to experience the hike up Camp Muir is with a licensed guide. Number 2. El Caminito del Rey. The Little Path of the King. What was originally built as an access point for the local hydroelectric plant, El Caminito del Rey is now one of the most dangerous hiking trails on Earth. El Caminito del Rey consists of a 2-mile concrete and steel path through El Chorro Gorge, which extends over 100 feet below the trail, which hangs from the cliff edge above. If you don't like heights, then stay far, far away from this one. In fact, the El Caminito was technically closed off to the public, but that never stopped thrill seekers and daredevils from making this perilous pilgrimage. This really has only made the trek even more dangerous though, as many sections of the trail have crumbled and climbers have to navigate over as much as 10 feet of missing trails in some sections. With a 100-foot drop below you, that's no small feat. Eventually, in 2015, the trail underwent the smallest of renovations to make it less dangerous, but not much is improved. This is very much a hike-at-your-own-risk type of place. You need to be in tip-top shape to tackle it, and quality equipment is a must, especially as you encounter the 9,500-foot-long catwalk suspended in the air. Even the most seasoned hikers take about 5 hours to complete this circuit. Number 1. Mount Huashan. If there ever was a place to conquer a fear of heights, Mount Huashan in China is the place to do it. trekking to the top of Mount Huashan is a centuries-old tradition. For those who make it to the top, there are Buddhist and Taoist temples that offer refreshments, including what some say is the best cup of tea in the world. But maybe what makes it so good is the thrill of it all. Any cup of tea is amazing after a journey like this one. Visitors access the temples by climbing the aptly named Heavenly Stairs carved straight into the northern peak, or by trail made of wooden planks bolted into the side of the South Mountain. At some points, even the wooden planks disappear and climbers are left to make do with small divots in the rock. It's a well-known destination for thrill seekers and so has become a bit crowded over the years, only adding to the fear. One little push from an eager tourist behind you and you'll be heading to the Heavenly Stairs, not just the way you had hoped. While Mount Huashan is one of the scariest hiking trails out there, it's worth the trip to see the view from the top. Many recommend staying to see the sunrise from the summit, even though the hike only takes about 6 hours round trip, meaning trekking up this mountain in the dark. I'll see you next time.
Watch our nature playlist for more top 15 videos about beautiful nature. Sit back, relax, and binge watch all of our best nature videos.